Sorry. Now it's time for you to see some identification in progress here for minerals. We have the Mohs hardness scale right here. It's a hardness scale collection, which we've read about earlier. And we have several minerals that are our references for the different hardnesses from 2, 3, 7, 6. And I have some minerals that we're going to identify. Here's one, our first one. It has a very metallic luster, as you can see. Oh, I should have let you figure that out. And we're now going to test its hardness. I'm going to start with a hardness of 1. This is our reference for the hardness of 1. It has a little 1 on it in the hardness kit. And I scratch it onto the one mineral, and I can see the powder flakes right off. So I'm going to scratch the other way, because you always should scratch both directions. And I can see that this makes a nice mark in this so that the mineral is harder than our reference for number 1. So I move to number 2. As I move through this, here's our reference for 2, and I scratch both directions again. And I can see that I made a nice scratch there, and I can tell that our mineral is definitely harder than 2. I go like that, and I just flake some of the powder right onto there. So now I move to number 3, which has a nice number 3 on it, and I do the same process. Move across. It feels like the powder's flaked right off, but then I'm also able to scratch it going this way, as you can see. So this mineral has unknown number 1, has a hardness somewhere between 2 and 3, probably around 2.5. And you can see now we're going to test for streak. The streak using a porcelain plate. Very gray to black, I would say, as you can see with the colors here. And this is a very has a very high specific gravity and a cubic crystal structure, crystal system. So that should be enough to help you identify that one. Let's move on to another one here. Let's move to this one right here, which has an interesting shape to it. You can see the crystal system in here. And do the same process. Start with number 1. Don't always start with 1, but I'm going to choose 2 here. And I scratch both directions. The mineral obviously is scratching this, and I'm just wiping the powder on there. Wipes right off. Go to number 2 again, and scratch both directions. Scratch the powder right onto there. Do it again. You can hear that it actually scratched right there. Definitely harder than 2. Move to number 3, right over here. And this one kind of scratched the powder out of there, but I also scratched that, so then I can go this direction. And they scratch each other, so when they scratch each other, that's an indicator that that's the hardness. So this has a hardness of 3, and you can see the crystal system. It is obviously white, and let's check the streak now. Looks like it's either color, the powder is basically white, so it's kind of colorless to white. And so that should be enough. Probably this is a very low specific gravity. So now we'll move to the next one to see if we can get through this. Here's this one, kind of a cool looking crystal. Pay no attention to the numbers from an identification kit. We'll start with, this one feels a little harder. I'm going to go all the way to 2 here and just go right to 2. And it easily scratches number 2, so I'll go to 3. I'm not even going to go both directions because this one feels so much harder. And easily scratches number 3. I'm going to go to number 4. As you can see, it's scratching number 4. We'll try both directions. Then that sounded like it scratched, but what it did was I wiped the powder of number 4 right onto it, so I actually scratched number 4. Same with number 5. Let's try that out. And again, I wiped the powder onto it, but it did not scratch the mineral. And I'm able to make a nice little mark in number 5. So it's definitely harder than 5. Go all the way to 6. This one's pretty hard mineral, but as I scratch them both directions, I can see that I'm making a mark right there. And it doesn't necessarily wipe off. This one right here wipes right off, so I'm wiping the powder onto there. So this mineral is harder than 6, so I move to 7 and have to apply quite a bit of pressure. And at this point, I'm actually wiped the powder onto there, and you can see that I made a little mark right there. So you can't necessarily see it very well, but you can trust me on this one. So if I go this direction, I have to apply quite a bit of pressure. I actually made a little mark on this one right there too. So this has a hardness of 7. Very nice crystal, pretty much colorless, fairly low specific gravity, and or very low, has a hardness of 7, and that should be enough for that one. This very cool mineral, lovely color. We'll just do something a little different here. Start with the streak. This has a brassy to yellow color to it, as you can see, and it's a greenish black streak that's right there. I'm going to go ahead and start with 5 for our hardness, just because I have a feeling this is fairly hard. So I've done this before, and I'm able to scratch the number 5 with the mineral. If I try and go the other direction, which is a good idea, I can see that I just kind of, it breaks all up. So if I go to 6, wipes right off. Try the other direction. So we're approaching the hardness on this one. If we go to 7, so those are pretty similar. If we go to 7, I'll scratch it there. There's a good spot. I'm able to scratch it pretty good right there. So this has a hardness somewhere between 6 and 7. So there we go. And that should help you. You should have enough information right there to be able to identify that one. It's a kind of a medium specific gravity. It's a little bit heavier than most of the other minerals we've been identifying. And then this is our next mineral. And we'll start with the streak again. And this one, the streak, is pretty much colorless. Can't see anything. It's got a fairly low specific gravity again. And if we test the hardness, I'm going to go ahead and start with number 5 here. And you can see I just wipe in the powder on there, definitely harder than 5. And then I'll move to 6. And at this point, it's pretty hard to do much. I can see that I've actually scratched it a little bit. If I go this direction, you can see that I've scratched it a bit. So they scratch each other. So this has a hardness of 6. It's colorless, white to gray to green. Sometimes this particular mineral can be, but this is a whiter mineral. Has a hardness of 6, fairly low specific gravity. And even though you can't necessarily see it, there's 2 cleavage planes that are meeting at about 86 degrees, which should help you quite a lot in the identification of this particular mineral. Okay, let's now it's your turn. You should be able to figure out what those minerals are.